Hi, my name is Claire Sims and I'm the Admissions and Access Officer at Worcester College in Oxford. What that means is I spend half of my time talking to young people about what studying at Oxford is really like, and I spend the other half of my time coordinating the administrative side of the admissions process here in Worcester, which gives me a bit of an insight into what successful applications to top universities actually look like. Today I'm going to be giving you a brief introduction to top universities, which will hopefully be particularly helpful if you're just coming up to your GCSEs or have recently started your A-levels. A lot of this information will be relevant for all top universities, but we will spend some time looking at Oxford in particular. And if you do want to learn more about Oxford, our new undergraduate prospectus is now available online on the publications page of the university website. If you're still unsure about top universities by the end of this video, my email address is at the bottom of all these slides, and you're more than welcome to get in touch with me and ask any questions. So here are the 4 topics we're going to cover today. Firstly, we're going to ask one simple question: why would you consider going to university? We're then going to move on to talking about Oxford in particular and ask what it is about Oxford that might set it apart from other top universities. After that, we're going to look more generally at what kind of candidates get successful offers from top universities. Lastly, we're going to think about what you can do between now and the start of year 13 to set you on the right track to make a great university application. Firstly, why might you want to go to university? And if you do decide to go to university, how do you decide which one is right for you? Well, we know that studying at university is essentially a step up from your academic studies at GCSE and A-level or equivalent, but it is slightly different to school. Rather than studying a variety of subjects, you tend to focus on 1 or 2 subjects in a lot of detail. Rather than being taught in classes, you have a lot more independent study time. You'll still have some taught sessions, not just classes, but also lectures, seminars, tutorials, and lab work. But as we'll see later, you're likely to spend at least half of your study time working on your own assignments. One of the biggest changes is that you won't necessarily be learning with people from your local area anymore. You get the opportunity to meet and make friends with people from up and down the country and all across the world. You're also assessed in a different way. Most schools will measure your progress in the same ways, with homework, maybe some coursework, and eventually some exams. At university, the outcome of your degree can be determined in a wide variety of different ways, from exams at the end of every year to regular coursework and projects. The style of teaching and assessment you want will often play a big role in which university you might choose to go to. Over half of young people in the UK do go on to university, but there are of course lots of other options available to you once you finish school. Why might you choose to go to university rather than getting a job or taking up an apprenticeship? Well, that decision is ultimately up to you and you'll know which path suits you best, but here are just some of the things which you could get out of a university degree. Firstly and most importantly, university gives you the chance to study your favourite subject or subjects in a lot of detail. There are over 50,000 higher education courses available across the country, so young people have more options than ever when it comes to specialising in an academic interest. You can do pretty much anything, from subjects you already know, like English and maths, to something totally new, like criminology or an ancient language. We'll talk a bit later about why having a keen interest in your subject is so important for applying to university. Secondly, having a degree often has a real and tangible impact on your future career. There are some professions which you just can't move into if you don't have a degree, such as becoming a doctor. Even if you don't need a degree to get the job you want, or you're not sure which career you'd like to have yet, you'll often find a degree will help you to earn more and progress faster in a wide variety of different fields. In the UK right now, your average starting salary when you don't have a degree is around £18,000 per year. Your average starting salary when you do have a degree is around £21,000 per year. When you have a degree from Oxford or Cambridge, your average starting salary jumps up to around £25,000 per year. Going to university can be great for your social life. By living and studying with lots of other young people who share some of your interests, you get to throw yourself into new activities, hobbies and experiences which may not have been available to you at school. University provides you with a support structure and a huge host of social opportunities to help you adjust to independent life when you're moving away from home for the first time. Plus, you get to work with people from all walks of life. At Oxford alone, we have students from over 150 different countries. Finally, completing a degree helps you to develop a set of skills which you can use for the rest of your life. With a few years of focused study, you can learn a great deal about communication, self-motivation, critical thinking, and a whole host of other key competencies. These skills are not only impressive to potential employers, but they can also help you to overcome challenges and think creatively about problems throughout your future. You'll feel the benefits of a great education for years after you leave. You do, of course, have to meet certain requirements when you're applying to university. Most importantly, you have to have the right academic background. By this, we don't mean you have to have come from a certain school or achieved straight A stars throughout your life. We mean you need to have met or be predicted to meet the grades you need for your course. Universities are usually primarily concerned with your achievements at A-level or equivalent. They can see your GCSE grades, which you put in your application form, and they might take them into account, but they're a relatively small part of the process. You also need to show that you are actually interested in the subject you want to study, and that you have all the right skills to pursue it at degree level. The best way to do this is to engage with supercurriculars. We'll cover this in more detail later, but your supercurriculars are basically the things you've done outside of your schoolwork, which are still related to your academic studies. A history book you've read outside of class, for example, or some articles you've read in a science magazine in your spare time. By engaging with these activities and talking about them in your application, you can indicate to top universities that you've gone above and beyond to learn more about the subject you're really interested in. If you do decide that you'd like to get a degree, you then face the interesting challenge of picking which university would be right for you. There are around 130 universities in the UK and a massive range of courses to choose from, so narrowing down your options to the 4 or 5 choices on your university application form can be a tricky task. What's going to make the difference? Well, you should think about a few different factors. Probably at the top of your list should be a question about teaching and assessment and facilities. You're at university for a number of different reasons, but remember that it is primarily an academic pursuit, so you need to make sure the course, the style of learning, and the resources available are right for you. Courses are taught very differently at different universities. A fine art degree at Oxford might look very different to the kind of fine art degree you'd find at the University of Derby, for example. So you need to look closely at the course content and find out how you'd be taught and what the outcome of your degree will be based on. Your facilities could include things like libraries, communal study spaces, and labs. Think about where you'd like to live. You might be thinking about staying local at this stage, but try to look further afield as well. You can always move to a different city if it offers the perfect degree for you, and then bring those great skills back to your hometown. Even when you're away, university timetables are often more flexible than school timetables, so you can find some time to visit home or catch up with old friends. Think about the kind of accommodation you'd prefer to live in when you leave home. Would you want to live in halls, which are kind of like big apartment blocks with lots of students, or would you prefer a shared house with some close friends? Universities can also fit into different categories. Some are campus universities, which means all the facilities you need are on the same site, slightly outside of the city centre. The University of Warwick is a campus university, for example. Some are city universities, like most universities in London, which means all the university's buildings are dotted around the city centre and students won't necessarily all live in the same area. A few universities, like Oxford, Cambridge or Durham, are collegiate. That's kind of a mix between campus and city. Colleges are like mini campuses spread out across the city, and you're a member of one of the colleges as well as being a student at the wider university. Some big facilities like lecture halls and student unions are shared by every student, but you'll find a lot of the things you need, like your accommodation, your dining hall and your nearest library at your college. We'll talk more about this later. Finally, do keep your extracurriculars in mind if you know that there's a particular club or society you want to join at university. For example, if you know you want to keep playing water polo or you want to join a top debate team. But remember that most universities will offer a wide variety of societies to join. Whether you're interested in sports, the arts, or something totally different, you'll probably find other students who are interested in the same things at most universities. In this presentation, we will mainly be talking about top universities, which in the UK are generally considered to include universities in the Russell Group. The Russell Group is a list of 24 leading UK universities based on their research, teaching, and the outcomes of their graduates. They're dotted up and down the country. You'll see Oxford highlighted in yellow on this map here, and they represent the kind of universities we're talking about when we talk in more detail about progressing to university later in the presentation. That highlighted blue section in the middle of the country is roughly the location of Yorkshire and the Humber, which is Worcester College's link region for access and outreach. There's one question I always get asked by people who aren't sure whether they want to go to university, and it's this: is it worth the cost? Well, that's up to you, but it's worth taking a closer look at your student funding options before you make up your mind. As a student, you have two main expenses: your tuition fees, which is the money you give to your university to pay for your teaching, textbooks and resources, and your living costs, so that's the money you spend on food, accommodation and social activities. Right now, tuition fees in England are capped at £9,250 a year, which means that no university can charge you more than that for a year's tuition. Most universities will charge you this amount. Your living costs will vary depending on your lifestyle, but most students spend around £9,000 to £14,000 every year. Most students take out a student loan from the student loans company to cover their tuition fees. You don't ever see that £9,250 a year. It doesn't come into your bank account and then go out again. The student loans company pays it directly to your university at the start of each academic year. At the end of your degree, you then repay your student loan over a 30-year period. You only start repaying your student loan when you're earning over around £25,000 per year. If you graduate and get a job where you earn £21,000 a year, you won't have to start paying back your student loan until you've crossed that earning threshold. Once you do start paying back your student loan, it's automatically deducted from your salary like a tax, and it's taken as 9% of what you're earning over the income threshold, so not 9% of your whole salary. We'll take a closer look at what this means in practice in the next slide. If you haven't paid off your student loans within 30 years of finishing your degree, the loan is wiped, so it won't follow you around forever. It's more like a graduate tax. To cover your living costs, you can get a maintenance grant from the government, which is paid back on the same terms. It's automatically taken out of your salary once you're earning over £25,000 a year, and will be wiped off after 30 years. Rather than going directly to your university, this money will be put into your bank account in increments at the start of each academic term. The amount of money you get is determined by your household income, which your family provides to the government when you apply for student funding. Depending on your level of household income, you can receive between around £4,000 and £9,000 from the government to help pay for your living costs at university. On top of this government support, you can also get bursaries and scholarships from your university. What you might not know is that it can actually be cheaper to study at a top university like Oxford because of the amount of financial support your university can give you. We'll talk about that in the next section. This is what your student loan repayments might look like depending on which job you take after graduating from university. As we mentioned earlier, if you're earning around £21,000 per year, you don't hit that threshold for repaying your student funding, and you won't have to pay anything back. If you're working in a job where you occasionally earn more than the monthly threshold, so currently around £2,150 a month before tax, you'll only have to pay back your student loan in months when you are earning over that amount. Let's say you graduate and you start working on a graduate scheme where you're earning around £27,000 per year. Now that you're consistently earning over the income threshold, you will have to start paying back your student loan every month, but you'll only be paying back around £9.60 every month. That's roughly the same as a Netflix subscription or 3.5 takeaway coffees from a high street chain. By comparison, you're taking home around £1,800 in your pocket every month after paying your taxes, so your student loan will make up a relatively small proportion of your income. Okay, so let's say you get a job as a junior aerospace engineer and your salary jumps up to £32,000 a year. The proportion of your salary which you pay back to the student loans company will remain the same. You'll still be paying back 9% of however much money you earn over the monthly threshold. However, the actual amount of money you pay back will increase with your growth in salary to around £45 a month. That sounds like a pretty big leap, but your take-home income has also gone up to £2,200 after tax, and it roughly equates to the amount you'd normally pay for an all-inclusive gym membership or a new iPhone contract. Let's say you've considered your options and you think university could be the right path for you. Still though, lots of intelligent students across the country think they're right for university, but they're not the Oxford type. Before you put yourself into that category, let's have a look at what Oxford is actually all about. For the fourth year in a row now, the Times Higher Education Survey has chosen Oxford University as the top university in the world. This isn't just a reflection of the amazing teaching and resources available here, but it also says something really important about the overall satisfaction of our students. We have over 100 libraries in the city with around 13 million printed items. The world-famous Bodleian Library, which sits right at the heart of Oxford, has a legal right to every book published in English, so any book you need for your course you can probably find. Some students can get through their entire degree at Oxford without having to buy a single textbook. We have over 1,500 labs in the city, which gives our science students the opportunity to engage in a fascinating field of research with world-leading experts. For example, you can sit in an Oxford University lab and use modelling software on the same data that won a group of scientists the Nobel Prize for discovering the accelerating expansion of the universe. On top of our labs and libraries, we also have 5 world-class museums, gardens and collections in Oxford. These collections are not only unique and interesting social spaces to visit when you have an afternoon off, but they are often also used for teaching, so you can get hands-on experience with the works, specimens and artefacts which are relevant to your course. Together, these collections hold over 8.5 million objects and specimens. The teaching at Oxford is widely considered to be some of the best in the world, and it's at the heart of our students' success. Like most universities, we offer lectures, classes and seminars and other forms of teaching to help everybody learn course content together, but we also have something pretty unique, which is the tutorial system. Most universities will give you the opportunity to discuss your work with academics in your field. At Oxford, these discussions come in the form of regular tutorials. You usually meet with a tutor once or twice a week, probably with 1 to 2 other students, and have an in-depth conversation about a topic of study. This individualised form of teaching means you learn a lot really quickly, as you have dedicated time with an expert who can talk you through new ideas, give you detailed feedback on the work you've produced, and point you towards new fields of study which are suited to your interests. As Aditi says here, the tutorial system is unmatched by any other form of educational delivery. It's one of the most famous and popular elements of learning at Oxford. No matter which subject you take, a course at Oxford will always involve a lot of independent study. Most Oxford students spend around 30 to 40 hours a week studying, but your contact hours, or the time you actually spend with a tutor or a teacher, will likely be less than that. If you're taking a humanities degree, you might have around 5 to 10 hours direct teaching every week. If you're taking a sciences degree, you'll probably have a bit more contact time at around 15 to 20 hours per week. This means that as an Oxford student, you're spending somewhere between 20 and 30 hours every week building up your independent study skills. This can look intimidating at first, and it does require some good time management, that, as we'll see in a moment, our students can manage their workload and still find plenty of time to pursue their own skills and hobbies outside of work. A degree at Oxford gives you the opportunity to dig deep into your subject and study it to a fascinating degree of detail, which means it's really important to pick the right course for you. In fact, passion for your chosen subject is one of our top selection criteria. We have around 250 courses to choose from, ranging from subjects you're already taking to subjects you might not have encountered before. You might look at this and recognise some familiar names, like history or biology. You can also combine 2 or 3 subjects if you'd like to draw from different pools of study. You can't combine everything. Oxford only offers certain subjects in joint degrees if they complement each other, so you can't pair any 2 or 3 subjects together. But you might find some interesting combinations which you hadn't considered before, such as history and English, or computer science and philosophy. You can even take 3 subjects together, such as PPE, which is philosophy, politics, and economics. You can also discover something totally new. For example, you could study Earth Sciences, which is the study of the planet and draws from a wide pool of sciences including chemistry, physics, biology, geology, geography, and paleontology. You could study Classics, which is a wide-ranging humanities degree looking at the literature, history, philosophy, languages, and archaeology of the ancient Greek and Roman worlds. When you're looking at university courses, don't just think about the subjects you're already taking, but think more broadly about why you enjoy those subjects and what else you could do with the skills you've developed. Take a look at all the courses on offer. Oxford isn't all about work. While studying here is about working hard, it's also about making the most of your time as a student and enjoying what you love. Our students engage in hundreds of extracurriculars at uni, and if they can't find a club or society they love, they can often apply for funding from the university or from their college to set up their perfect student community. We have over 70 sports clubs, offering everything from a casual kickabout once a week to teams of a near professional standard who compete against other universities. Students can get involved in music, drama, literature, and the performing arts in a wide variety of theatre spaces in the city. Some of Oxford's most notable alumni include famous performing artists like Hugh Grant, Emma Watson, and Gemma Chan. As a student, you can volunteer across Oxford, write for the student newspaper, join a debate team, or get involved in weekly events with a faith or community group. There are plenty of activities to keep you going when you're not studying. We mentioned earlier that Oxford students are busy, but they can still find time to fit in their studies and their social life. Well, here's what your average timetable might look like if you're a history student with us. As you can see, this person has quite a busy schedule. Their studying time is coloured in purple and blue, blue for their contact hours, purple for their independent study, and all the rest of their time, the yellow and green boxes, is their social life. What you'll notice about the student timetable is that their work is spread pretty evenly throughout the week. They've got a few lectures, a tutorial, and a class in the week, but they're always spending at least a couple of hours each day doing their own reading. This is pretty typical for one of our humanities students. They have fewer contact hours than your average scientist, so they can be a bit more flexible with their working hours and keep up with their reading outside of a 9 to 5 working schedule. Outside of their studies, they have plenty of time to catch up with their friends, take part in student societies, and keep up with Netflix. We can compare that history student's schedule to your average schedule for a physics student. As we mentioned earlier, scientists are likely to have more contact hours in their timetable because there's more direct course content for them to learn, which they couldn't pick up as easily from independent study. In this student's timetable, you can see they've got a lot of blue contact hours on Monday to Friday, particularly lectures in the morning and labs in the afternoon, and they also have a couple of tutorials. Most students have 1 or 2 tutorials every week. Compared to the history student, they have a little bit less independent study time. They're still working on lab sheets and reports to make sure that they're consolidating their knowledge and preparing for upcoming tutorials, but they're completing a relatively high proportion of their work in guided contact time. Their weekend is mostly free. They're only doing a couple of hours of preparation for the upcoming week on Sunday afternoon. The university provides extensive resources for welfare to make sure that every student can access the support they need to complete their degree. Here we're looking at 2 tiers of support. The special support you can get through the college system on the top row, and the wider support which is offered by the university as a whole on the bottom row. Oxford is a collegiate university, and we'll be talking about that in a bit more detail in a minute, but what it essentially means is that our undergraduate students are divided between 35 mini campuses across the city, where they often live, eat, work, and socialise. Being part of the college system means we can take a really personal approach to welfare here, where the welfare staff at each college can get to know each student as an individual. As well as being a member of a college at Oxford, you're also a member of the university as a whole, and that entitles you to support from some bigger services. For example, you can go to the university's free counselling service and receive welfare support from trained professionals. We also have a well-resourced disability advisory service, which around a quarter of our students use, which helps students to set up special arrangements like adjustments for their exams and study support throughout the term. Welfare support at Oxford is bespoke and provided on a student-by-student basis, whether a student just needs to chat to somebody or whether they need consistent and specialised support throughout their degree. Oxford is particularly proud of its extensive careers service. With their help, Oxford graduates go on to a fantastic range of jobs around the world, and within a year of graduating, around a quarter of our former students are earning over £30,000 a year. Throughout your degree, you can attend regular careers fairs, chat to visiting recruiters, apply for lucrative internships, and arrange one-to-one appointments with careers advisors to help you to build up a professional portfolio before you graduate. Not only that, but the career service is there to support you throughout your life. If you wake up in 30 years' time and decide to pursue a totally different career path, you can still call up the career service and get all the same in-depth advice and guidance about your field that you would have got as a student. Here's a quick look at what recent Oxford and Cambridge graduates studied before pursuing law as a career. That big red section is made up of undergraduate law students, but they're not the only students who went on to become lawyers. In fact, we can also see that large numbers of historians, classicists, and English students became lawyers as well. There are 15 subjects represented here, and they're not all humanities or essay writing subjects. You also get plenty of natural scientists, economists, and geographers graduating from Oxbridge and going on to enjoy successful careers in law. There's a widely circulated myth that in order to become a successful lawyer after university, you have to have taken an undergraduate law degree. That's not true. As we can see from this graph, only around half of our graduates who go into the law actually studied law at undergraduate level. You can take a totally different undergraduate degree and then pursue a conversion course after you graduate to qualify to practice law. Now let's take a look at what you might go on to do with a biology degree from Oxford. Here's what some of our previous biology graduates have ended up doing. You might have predicted some of these jobs: ecologists, biologists, technologists. They all sound like they'd need a pretty sciencey degree. However, there are also a few jobs up here which you might not have predicted. We've got a musician, an editor, an accountant, a teacher, a doctor, even a nature holiday guide. These graduates all took vital skills from their degrees at Oxford, but they didn't necessarily need to go into a field of biology to find a job they loved, or they found they could apply what they learned from their degree in new and innovative ways in the job market. Studying any degree at a university like Oxford will provide you with key employable skills which are highly sought after in a wide range of careers. To return briefly to the point about student funding, we mentioned that your level of financial support can vary according to the university you go to, as you can get different bursaries and scholarships. Oxford is really generous with its bursaries and scholarships, and it gives out over £8 million every year in financial support to its students. This isn't a loan, it's not money that we expect back, it's just additional support which we give out to our students based on their household income to make sure they can live and study comfortably at the university. At Oxford, you're part of a college. This can help to keep your costs down as your meals and accommodation are often heavily subsidised, and your college can give you extra grants for travel, books and hardship. Plus, no matter which college you go to, our terms are only 8 weeks long, meaning you can often save money on your accommodation contracts. The university has enough resources to make sure you rarely have to buy materials for your course like textbooks, and there is a big pot of centralised funding which all of our students are eligible for. The final thing to talk about when we're talking about Oxford is the college system. As I mentioned earlier, a college is a small academic community where you can live, eat, work and socialise as a student here. You're a student at Oxford in 3 different ways. You're part of the university, you're a member of your department, and you're a member of your college too. Oxford University encompasses the whole student body. It oversees all the different colleges and departments and gives you your degree at the end of your course. Your department will organise a lot of your teaching and coordinate your course on a subject level. You might go to your department for lectures, labs and occasionally tutorials. Your college is often where you spend the most time because it will provide you with accommodation for at least part of your course, it will provide you with social spaces like common rooms and dining halls, and it will probably be one of your most immediate sources of community within the city. Every college offers accommodation, pictured here in the top left, a dining hall, pictured bottom left, a common room, pictured top right, and a library, pictured bottom right. These pictures are all from St Catherine's College. As you can tell, not all colleges look like Hogwarts. St Catherine's was built in the 1960s and doesn't have that kind of medieval architecture or big Gothic gargoyles, which you might associate with some of our more traditional colleges. All the colleges look a little bit different and have something special to offer. They can vary in size, location and facilities. Some have pets, some have music rooms, some have special societies and so on, but they all provide the basic facilities you need to live and study at the university. Okay, so top universities have a lot to offer their students, but what should prospective applicants show to these universities in order to be offered a place? What type of person do you need to be to make a successful application to a top university like Oxford? Well, I can start off by telling you what we're not looking for. You don't have to be an absolute genius, a perfect A-grade student since the moment you were born, or a really posh person to apply to a top university. Instead, we're looking for students who are motivated, academically able, and genuinely interested in their chosen degree subject. We've already talked about that genuine subject interest, and it's one of the most important things about Oxford which we can't stress enough. The application process is all about expressing your interest in your subject. We're looking for students who have academic ability and potential. This means you have to meet or be predicted to meet the entrance requirements for your course, but it doesn't mean you must have achieved straight A stars throughout your entire academic career. Prior qualifications like your GCSEs make up a relatively small part of our assessment process. Of course, this doesn't mean your GCSE grades are unimportant. A great set of grades at GCSE never hurts a university application. But if you don't perform as well as you'd hoped, a top university could still be an option for you. You need to meet the subject requirements for your subject. As we've said, courses which have the same name can still be taught in very different ways at different universities, so make sure you show the right skills and have the right qualifications for the specific course you've chosen. The requirements for each subject are usually listed on university websites. You need to suit the learning and assessment style. If sitting across from an academic and discussing your work in a lot of detail sounds like your worst nightmare, the tutorial system might not be the right fit for you, and you might want to consider teaching at other universities which focuses more on kind of group work. All of our students are hardworking and self-motivated. As we know, there's a lot of independent study in a top degree, so you have to be prepared to work hard and learn how to manage your own time. What's even more important than making sure that you're the right candidate for a top university, though, is making sure that these universities will be right for you. One of the two big questions you'll have to answer when you pick any university is whether it offers a course you would enjoy and whether the teaching style would suit you. Top universities offer thousands of courses covering a wide span of the humanities and sciences, but unfortunately we can't offer everything, and you may find that you're better suited to a different degree course at another university. If you'd like to study at a Russell Group uni but you know we don't offer the right undergraduate course for you, you might consider studying here as a postgraduate, which could give you the opportunity to specialise in a more niche area. Degrees at top universities are quite hands-on and require some hard work, so you need to make sure that the kind of teaching and assessment will be right for you. For example, the tutorial system at Oxford is a very individualised form of learning, and you need to show proactive engagement with your subject and independent thinking to really make the most of it. This doesn't mean that a shy person would necessarily struggle at a university like Oxford. In fact, this teaching is really good for building up your communication skills, so you might look forward to the prospect of challenging yourself to work in a new way. If your answer to both of those two questions is yes, a top university does offer your course and you would enjoy the teaching style, you can start to think about whether you would meet those requirements we talked about a moment ago to make a successful application. You need to have the right grades for your course. Check out the prospectus for the universities you're interested in if you're not sure what those grades would be. And you need to be ready for the academic challenge. This is quite a cheesy note to end on, but it does sum up the kind of attitude you need to make a successful application. Studying at a top university is a challenge, but if you are passionate about your chosen subject and prepared to work hard to engage with it in a lot of detail over the next 3 or 4 years, you're exactly the kind of candidate we're looking for. Our note to end on then is, what can you do to make your university application really stand out? Well, there are plenty of ways in which you can engage with and explore your future subject, and don't worry about starting too early. Thinking hard about what you would like to study and how you can pursue your interest in it now will put you in the best possible position when it comes to making your application. The path to a top university is made up of 4 simple steps. Firstly, it's obviously important to get the results you need. Without the right A-levels or equivalent qualifications, you won't be able to make an application for your perfect course. Then you need to do some research about what's next for you, which A-level choices are going to get you where you want to go, and which general area of interest in your studies could you possibly pursue as a degree. It's then time to engage with and explore the subjects you're thinking of. You don't necessarily need to have narrowed down a specific course by this point, because the materials and resources you work with should give you a better sense of which subjects you will be best suited to. Finally, once you know which courses interest you, it's time to get started on that application. You probably won't have to think about this last step until you're gearing up to apply to university in year 12 or year 13, so for now, focus on investigating your future course. Going to a top university means doing well in your previous qualifications, so think carefully about the A-levels or equivalent qualifications you take between the end of year 11 and the end of year 13. In all likelihood, the subjects you will do well in are the ones you enjoy and find interesting. Remember that for certain university courses you will need to take certain A-levels. For medicine, for example, you'll probably require chemistry and potentially another science like biology, physics or maths. However, there are thousands of options out there which don't require any specific A-levels, or which will only ask for facilitating subjects. So, what are facilitating subjects? Put simply, these are the academic subjects which are the most common A-levels required for university courses, because they encompass a lot of the skills you'll need to study anything. If you're interested in studying any kind of science at university, studying maths and chemistry at A-level will open up a lot of options for you. If you want to study a humanities subject or any subject which could involve essay writing, studying history and English at A-level will give you a lot of the key skills universities are looking for. If you're not sure what you want to study yet, geography or a modern language can build up a range of skills and show off your general learning skills to your future university. These courses are all relatively mainstream, so they're offered by most further education providers, and they'll give you a lot of the general academic ideas universities look for without forcing you to narrow down your options too much. One of the most common questions we get asked is whether you need to take your preferred university subject at A-level in order to make a successful application. Actually, the opposite may be true. There are some university courses where you will need to take the A-level in that subject. Usually this is the case when the degree will be a continuation of something you've already studied, rather than a totally new subject, like studying A-level English, A-level Maths, or A-level Geography before studying those subjects at university. However, when it comes to studying subjects at university for which you don't necessarily need any pre-existing knowledge, like law, economics, or philosophy, it may actually be more helpful to study broader facilitating subjects than the smaller and more obscure A-level versions of these subjects. For example, you can build up your wider skills in each of these subject areas by taking A-level English instead of A-level law, history instead of philosophy, or maths instead of economics. When you're choosing a certain course and a certain university, you'll want to bear certain factors in mind. Most importantly, think about the subject. Do you want to carry on with something you've already been studying, or combine 2 or 3 subjects in a joint honours degree, or start with something totally new? What kind of opportunities do you want to get out of university? Do you want to spend some time studying abroad? Many universities will give you the option to spend a term or a year abroad regardless of which course you're doing, although some universities, like Oxford, may only offer study abroad if your studies involve a foreign language. If you're a potential science student, you might want to think about the kind of research you'd like to do and which universities will give you the teachers and the resources to do that kind of research. Bear your future career in mind, but don't worry too much if you haven't thought about it. Finally, consider the style of the university and the course. What kind of teaching are you going to get? What will the final result of your degree be based on? And will you enjoy the layout and the content of the course? Investigating your future university course doesn't necessarily mean just picking your favourite subject at school, or picking the course which you think will lead to the best career. These are some of our most oversubscribed courses at Oxford on the left. Lots of people apply to these subjects, but there are plenty of students who go into these fields and then realise that another degree would have suited them better and could have led to similar or even the same career opportunities. This is not to say that you should change your mind. If you have decided that studying medicine or law at university is the perfect course for you, then high application rates shouldn't put you off. However, you might be thinking about a popular degree subject which appears on the left here without considering the full variety of other courses which might suit you. A budding lawyer might have a look around at the other courses on offer and find a course which they are equally as qualified for but which they haven't previously heard of, such as theology and religion, classics, or archaeology and anthropology. Archaeology and anthropology might provide you with the opportunity to grapple with ideas about society and culture which you could find in a traditional law degree, but will also give you the opportunity to bring in elements of history, sociology, and the sciences, and you could still go on to become a lawyer after graduation. The exact same A-levels which you would need to meet your offer for a physics degree at Oxford could also get you an offer for earth sciences or materials science. Materials science sits on the more practical side of physics and takes in parts of physics and chemistry, but also looks at engineering applications and industrial manufacturing processes. You could also pursue a joint honours degree here and combine your existing interest in physics with some fascinating elements of philosophy. If you want to become a doctor, you will need some kind of medicine degree. However, you might find that you're even more interested in the fields and careers options which come from doing a degree which is adjacent to medicine. For example, you could study biomedical sciences, which shares some of medicine's modules, but places more emphasis on how cells, organs, and systems function in the human body, particularly in relation to diseases. Alternatively, you could study human sciences, which is a really interesting and exciting alternative to a more traditional subject. It draws from loads of different subject pools and blends them together in the study of the biological, social, and cultural aspects of human life. You'll remember that earlier we defined supercurriculars as things you've done outside of your schoolwork which are still related to your academic studies. They're kind of related to extracurriculars, but rather than being totally unrelated to your schoolwork, the supercurriculars you pursue should stretch and develop the academic skills you're picking up in class. And here's why. When it comes to making a great university application, you should be able to show your interest in the course you've chosen by using a selection of examples rather than just talking about it. These are all excerpts from successful personal statements. When you apply to university, you have to write a personal statement to go with your application, which is your opportunity to tell your chosen universities why you'd be the right fit for this course. As you can see from these examples, the best personal statements won't just tell you how much the writer cares about law or maths or English, they'll show you with some key examples. What counts as a supercurricular? Well, pretty much anything which helps you to develop your academic interests. There are thousands of options, and these are just a few suggestions. You don't have to do all of these things or build up a great long list of hundreds of examples in order to make a great university application. You should keep supercurriculars in the back of your mind, though, and particularly make the most of any opportunities which come your way, such as attending an academic summer school, listening to a new podcast series about your future course, or spending a spare hour reading The Economist. If you're not sure where to start here, I'd recommend visiting a website called Staircase 12. It's run by University College in Oxford, and it features huge lists of supercurricular resources and recommended reading, which you can use to narrow down by course. One of the best things you can do in the run-up to a university application is keep a journal of all the supercurriculars you've engaged with. Now, you might not have read many books around your favourite subjects or watched any online lectures about your course yet, and that's okay, there's still plenty of time to build up a stellar bank of supercurriculars. Being aware of your supercurriculars now, and particularly seeking out opportunities to expand and build on them, will make all the difference in a couple of years' time. When you start to explore around your subject, try to engage with the resources you find critically too. Most top universities will want to see your critical thinking skills, and a really easy way to show them that you're a proactive and independent thinker is to form your own opinions on the supercurriculars you use. When you read a book about a subject, keep note of the key arguments in the book, but also think about what you agreed or disagreed with. If the resources that you're using are easy to share, send them to friends or family and start a discussion with them about the key themes. You could even start a book club or a discussion club at your school. Finally, if you want to make a successful application to a top uni, you'll have to be familiar with the admissions process, but you won't have to think about that just yet. For now, it's time to do your research and start building up some of the key skills which are highly sought after in higher education. That includes your critical thinking, your powers of communication, and your engagement with the wider field of your subject. Here are a few links to get you started. You might be particularly interested in a website called Oxplore, which is a website full of interesting questions hosted by the university to help you develop that keen subject interest, which is so key to university admissions. It can be helpful to start talking about your subject. You can do this by watching short clips or reading articles about your subject and sharing them with people you know, or even by just listening to academics talking about their work, for example in TED Talks or in recorded lectures on YouTube. Finally, if you want to do some more work on preparing for university, and particularly if you're thinking about applying to Oxford or Cambridge, check out the Increasing Access section of the university website for details of university outreach events near you. Well, we've reached the end of our introduction to top universities, and I hope you found some information here which is relevant and helpful. If you do have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me at that email address below. For now, I wish you the best of luck with your future university applications, and thank you very much for listening.